Imagine waking up in the comfort of your own bed. The air in your room feels unusually cold, carrying a deep, bone-chilling frost that seems to pierce right through your thickest blankets. You slowly rub your eyes, fully expecting to see the familiar, comforting golden rays of the morning sun filtering through your curtains to start the day. But there is absolutely nothing. You blink, thinking your eyes are yet to adjust, but the blackness remains. It is just a void, a darkness so incredibly thick and absolute that you cannot even see your own hands when you hold them mere inches from your face. You instinctively reach out for a light switch, hoping to banish the gloom. But let us strip away the comforts of our modern technology for a moment. Let us travel back to a time when humanity was entirely at the merciless whims of the vast skies above. Imagine being a hard-working farmer, a busy merchant, or a devoted mother in an ancient, thriving city. You wake up waiting for the rooster to crow, but the rooster remains silent. You listen for the morning songs of the birds, but they are dead silent in the trees, paralyzed by an unnatural fear. You step outside your wooden door, expecting to breathe in the crisp morning air and witness the vibrant colors of dawn. Instead, you are instantly met with a suffocating ink-black sky. The sun has not simply hidden behind a passing storm cloud. The sun has vanished completely from existence. This scenario is not a dark fantasy or a script written for a Hollywood horror movie. Throughout human history, scattered across ancient texts, forgotten scrolls, and terrifying legends passed down through generations, there exists a chilling, recurring nightmare. A terrifying phenomenon where the life-giving light of the sun was abruptly extinguished for 3 full days. A heart-stopping span of 72 hours where bright day turned into endless night, global temperatures plummeted to freezing levels, and a primal, unspeakable fear gripped the hearts of every living creature on planet Earth. Welcome to our channel, where we journey deep into the most mind-bending, terrifying, and awe-inspiring mysteries of our world history. If you are captivated by the untold secrets of our past and the immense, terrifying power of nature, you have definitely found your true home. Make sure to watch this entire story unfold, listen closely to every detail, and if you feel that undeniable chill run down your spine, hit that like button to show your support. And please do not forget to subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss out on our cinematic and deeply researched journeys into the great unknown. Now, take a deep breath and close your eyes for a moment. Picture the world as it slowly descends into an unnatural, eerie twilight. The first few hours of the darkness are marked by profound, overwhelming confusion. People cautiously gather in the dirt streets and stone squares, tightly holding on to torches and oil lamps. The flames desperately flicker in the cold wind, casting long, distorted, eerie shadows against the rough stone walls of the houses. The light from the fire feels incredibly weak, almost as if the darkness itself is a massive, living, breathing entity that is actively trying to swallow the light whole. Neighbors nervously ask each other if this is merely a solar eclipse, but everyone knows an eclipse lasts for mere minutes. As the dreadful hours drag on, the horrifying reality of the situation begins to settle heavily into their minds. This is no ordinary celestial event. The sky is a heavy, oppressive black canopy pressing down on them. There are absolutely no stars shining. There is no pale moon to offer guidance in the black sea above. It is as if the entire planet has been suddenly swallowed by a giant cosmic beast, leaving humanity totally blind and helpless. As the first 24 hours agonizingly pass, the initial confusion slowly mutates into sheer, unadulterated panic.
Without the radiant heat of the sun, the temperature drops at a terrifyingly rapid pace. The lingering warmth of the previous day completely evaporates into the freezing, unforgiving air. Lush green crops begin to stiffen and die under a sudden, unexpected layer of heavy frost. Animals react to this cosmic anomaly with sheer, uncontrollable terror. Herds of cattle huddled tightly together in the fields, moaning loudly in deep distress. Farm dogs howl endlessly into the black void, their sharp instincts screaming that something is terribly, fundamentally wrong with the world. Birds, utterly confused by the perpetual night, refuse to leave the safety of their nests, eventually falling into a deep state of freezing lethargy or simply dropping dead from the sudden, shocking plunge in temperature. The fragile natural order of the entire world is completely and violently shattered.
Inside the fragile homes of the people, the brutal psychological toll begins to manifest in terrifying ways. Imagine the intense claustrophobia creeping in. The human brain is intricately wired to respond to the natural cycle of day and night. Our circadian rhythm dictates our healthy sleep, our emotional mood, and our very sanity. When that delicate rhythm is so violently and abruptly disrupted, the human mind begins to play cruel, terrifying tricks. Shadows shifting in the corners of the room seem to move entirely on their own. The absolute silence of the outside world becomes so heavy it is almost deafening to the ears. Every single creak of the wooden floorboards, every violent gust of wind rattling the shutters sounds like a monstrous threat lurking just beyond the safety of the front door. People huddled tightly around their stone hearths, desperately feeding whatever scrap of wood they have left into the dying fire. But the unnatural cold is completely relentless. It seeps through the tiny cracks in the walls, chilling them down to the very marrow of their bones. Modern historians and brilliant scientists have fiercely debated what could possibly cause such an apocalyptic, world-ending scenario. Many experts urgently point to the terrifying, earth-shattering power of supervolcanoes. Imagine a catastrophic volcanic eruption so massive, so incredibly violent, that it literally rips the Earth apart and violently ejects millions of tons of pulverized rock, toxic ash, and sulfur dioxide straight up into the stratosphere. The massive ash cloud expands rapidly, carried by fast-moving high-altitude winds, spreading like a deadly, suffocating blanket across the entire sky. This is not just harmless black smoke, it is a dense, impenetrable shield of microscopic glass and stone that completely and effectively blocks out every single ray of the sun. The air quickly becomes incredibly thick and agonizingly difficult to breathe. A noxious, sulfurous stench, smelling strongly like rotten eggs, permeates the atmosphere, making people constantly gag and choke for fresh air. The deadly ash falls quietly like black snow, thickly coating the empty streets, the silent houses, and the dying fields in a highly toxic layer of gray dust. As the dreaded second day officially begins, though no one can truly tell what time it is without the sun or a modern clock, the sense of absolute despair deepens significantly. Essential supplies of food and dry firewood start to dwindle at an alarming rate. The initial desperate hope that the sun would naturally return the very next morning has been completely and brutally crushed. The thick darkness feels incredibly heavy, almost tangible and physical against the skin. Frightened families hold each other tightly in the dark, weeping silently into the night, praying desperately to whatever gods they believe in to please bring back the warm light. The vibrant world outside has completely transformed into a frozen, silent, terrifying graveyard. Anyone brave enough, or perhaps desperate enough, to venture out into the blackness to find help quickly realizes the lethal danger. The total darkness is entirely disorienting. Familiar local landmarks are completely invisible. It is incredibly easy to get hopelessly lost just a few short feet away from your own front door. The biting, bitter cold cruelly gnaws at any exposed skin, and the toxic floating ash intensely burns the lungs with every single breath.
This specific historical nightmare is deeply and permanently etched into our collective human memory. The ancient Egyptians famously recorded a terrifying darkness so incredibly thick that it could actually be felt by the hands, a punishing darkness that lasted for exactly 3 days, completely paralyzing their entire advanced civilization. Ancient records state that no one rose from their resting place. No one could even see their own neighbor sitting right next to them. They were entirely trapped in a massive sensory deprivation chamber created by the wrath of nature itself. Was this legendary event triggered by a massive volcanic eruption from the distant island of Thera? Was it a freak once-in-a-millennium meteorological event? Or was it something far more mysterious, divine, and entirely inexplicable? Regardless of the actual cause, the sheer terror they felt was universally human. It was the absolute crushing realization of our own ultimate fragility. We build towering cities, we conquer vast, distant lands, we create magnificent, world-changing technologies. But if you simply take away the sun for just 48 hours, humanity is immediately and forcefully reduced to nothing more than frightened, shivering creatures hiding desperately in the dark. The second long day finally draws to a close, though there is absolutely no beautiful sunset to visually mark its end. The extreme psychological pressure pressing down on the survivors reaches an absolute breaking point. Severe paranoia sets in rapidly. Without any visual input to ground them, the human imagination runs completely wild and unrestrained. People begin to vividly hallucinate in the dark. They swear they hear sinister whispering voices carried in the cold wind. They see terrifying, demonic shapes forming in the pitch-black corners of their unlit rooms. The elderly, the sick, and the very young begin to tragically succumb to the freezing, unforgiving temperatures. The heartbreaking wails of mourning loudly blend with the howling wind outside, creating a tragic, deafening symphony of pure, unfiltered horror. The world has truly become a cold, dark, inescapable tomb, and the traumatized survivors are left wondering in pure terror if they are indeed the very last people left alive on planet Earth. Will the mighty sun ever rise again, or is this finally the terrifying, long-prophesied end of the world?
This chilling cliffhanger brings us directly to the most critical, intense, and agonizing moment of the entire 3 days of darkness. The terrifying transition into the third and final day, where all lingering hope completely dies and raw, primal survival instincts forcefully take over the human mind. But the terrifying events of the third day, the incredible climax of this historical phenomenon, and the shocking, world-altering aftermath that changed the course of human history forever, are something we will deeply explore in the very next part of our thrilling cinematic journey. The terrifying reality of the third day begins not with a sunrise, but with a profound, agonizing continuation of the eternal blackness. By now, the concept of time has completely lost its meaning for the terrified survivors huddled in their freezing homes. There are no clocks ticking on the walls, no shadows shifting across the floor to indicate the passing of hours. There is only an endless, suffocating present. The human mind, deprived of the natural rhythm of day and night, begins to fracture under the immense, crushing weight of sensory deprivation. Imagine the sheer physical agony of the cold. The dramatic drop in temperature has turned the world outside into a hostile, frozen wasteland. Inside, the last dying embers of the hearth fires have finally burned out, leaving nothing but freezing white ash. Families huddle tightly together under every blanket, rug, and piece of clothing they own, but the unnatural frost bites through the fabric, seeping deep into their bones. Every breath they take forms a thick, icy cloud in the pitch-black room. The silence is no longer just quiet. It is an oppressive, heavy void that makes their ears ring with phantom noises. The gnawing ache of hunger twists in their empty stomachs, but attempting to navigate the pitch-black house to find the last scraps of dried bread feels like navigating a deadly maze. That psychological torment reaches its absolute peak during these final 24 hours. People are no longer just afraid, they are entirely broken.
The initial frantic prayers and desperate cries for help have slowly faded into a hollow, defeated silence. In the dark, tears stream down cold cheeks, freezing before they can even fall to the ground. Some people simply give up, closing their eyes and waiting for the icy grip of death to take them away from this waking nightmare. Others succumb to absolute madness. Without any visual anchors to ground them in reality, their terrified brains conjure up horrific waking nightmares. They hear footsteps approaching in the empty hallways. They feel unseen icy hands brushing against their shoulders in the pitch dark. The line between reality and hallucination is completely erased. History has actually recorded glimpses of this exact apocalyptic terror. In the year 536, a massive, mysterious fog plunged Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia into a devastating darkness. Historical scholars and brilliant scientists now believe this was the direct result of a cataclysmic volcanic eruption. The great Byzantine historian Procopius wrote with absolute terror that the sun gave forth its light without brightness, looking exactly like the moon in eclipse. For over a year, crops failed entirely, millions starved to death, and snow mysteriously fell in the middle of summer in distant China. It is widely considered by modern historians to be the absolute worst year to be alive in all of human history. But the legends of the 3 days of absolute blinding darkness represent the most extreme, highly concentrated nightmare of this volcanic winter phenomenon, a period where the ash cloud was so dense, so incredibly thick, that it blocked out 100% of the sunlight, sealing humanity in a temporary, terrifying tomb. As the 72nd hour slowly approaches, a strange, subtle shift begins to occur in the dead atmosphere. It is not something you can see, but rather something you can feel deep in your chest. The incredibly heavy, oppressive atmospheric pressure that has been crushing the world begins to slightly lift. The stagnant, freezing air suddenly stirs. A very faint, bitter wind begins to blow, violently whistling through the dead trees and rattling the wooden shutters of the frozen houses. To the people trapped inside, this sudden noise is utterly terrifying. They cling to each other, fearing that this wind brings a new, unseen monster from the dark. But this wind is not a monster. It is the very first breath of a resurrected world. High up in the Earth's stratosphere, the massive global blanket of toxic volcanic ash is finally beginning to thin out. Fast-moving, high-altitude air currents are aggressively tearing away at the dense black clouds, slowly fracturing the impenetrable shield that has hidden the sun.
Down on the ground, a man cautiously opens his front door, his trembling hands grasping the freezing wooden frame. He expects to see the same endless wall of black ink, but as he stares up into the sky, something is different. The absolute pitch-black darkness has subtly softened into a deep, bruised shade of dark purple. The change is so incredibly slight that he blinks rapidly, rubbing his tired eyes, absolutely convinced his mind is playing cruel tricks on him again. But then, his neighbor steps out, then another. Soon, dozens of freezing, starving people are standing in the ash-covered streets, their faces turned upward toward the heavens, holding their breath in pure, agonizing anticipation. And then, it happens. A single, incredibly thin ray of golden light pierces violently through the dark clouds. It strikes the frozen ground like a blinding spear sent from the heavens. After 3 full days of absolute crushing darkness, the sudden introduction of brilliant sunlight is physically agonizing to the human eye. People instantly cry out in pain, raising their hands to shield their deeply sensitive, dilated pupils. But despite the sharp, burning pain in their eyes, no one looks away. They fall to their freezing knees in the thick gray ash. They weep uncontrollably, completely overwhelmed by a tsunami of absolute relief, immense joy, and profound spiritual awe. Slowly, agonizingly, the clouds continue to part. The glorious, life-giving sun finally reveals itself, casting its warm, golden embrace over the devastated landscape. The light touches the frozen, dead crops, the silent, bewildered animals, and the trembling, tear-streaked faces of the surviving humans.
The air immediately begins to warm, melting the unnatural frost and chasing away the bone-chilling cold that had haunted them for 72 hours. The sweet, beautiful sound of a single surviving bird chirping in the distance cuts through the heavy silence, sounding like the most magnificent symphony ever composed. But the world they are looking at is forever changed. Everything is coated in a thick, toxic layer of gray volcanic snow. The vibrant green fields are completely destroyed, and the devastating realization sets in that the true struggle for survival is only just beginning. They will face immense famine, widespread disease, and a long, brutal road to rebuilding their shattered civilization. Yet, in this incredibly powerful cinematic moment, none of that matters. The sheer, overwhelming ecstasy of seeing the sunlight again washes away all immediate fear. They had stared directly into the terrifying abyss of the apocalypse. They had experienced the ultimate human vulnerability, realizing that all their grand cities, their powerful armies, and their human pride meant absolutely nothing without the grace of the glowing star in the sky. This horrific event would be permanently burned into their cultural memory, passed down through ancient texts and whispered legends, a dark warning for future generations. It is a chilling reminder that we are merely guests on this volatile, unpredictable planet, entirely at the mercy of immense cosmic and geological forces far beyond our control. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible, terrifying journey into the darkness. If this story made your heart race and gave you a new appreciation for the sunlight outside your window, please hit that like button right now. And if you want to uncover more mind-blowing, deeply researched, and terrifying mysteries from human history, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We have so many more incredible stories waiting for you. Stay curious, stay safe, and always remember to appreciate the light.